U.S. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby has said that the Biden administration is working hard to thwart attacks on Indian and Indian American students.
And the statement, which was made during a White House presser on Thursday, comes amid a recent surge in assault cases against the community in various parts of the U.S.
Now, furthering his take on the situation, Kirby said that the White House strongly condemns racial and gender violence and categorized such behavior as unacceptable. Listen to this.
The president, this administration has been working very, very hard to make sure we're doing everything we can to work with state and local authorities to try to thwart and disrupt those kinds of attacks and make it clear to anybody who might consider them that they'll be held properly accountable.
Now, just this year, an Indian student named Shreyas Reddy was found dead in Ohio in February, and he was a student of a school of business, and the police have been unable to ascertain the cause of the death. Another Indian student at another university, Purdue University, Neil Acharya, was also found dead on 30th of January after being missing for days. On the same day, another Indian student, Vivek Saini, was brutally killed with repeated blows from a hammer by a homeless man inside Georgia store.
Shifting focus to the U.S., Fulton County District Attorney and Trump's prosecutor, Fani Willis, took the witness stand over misconduct allegations involving her and a special prosecutor.
And Willis, who is overseeing the election interference case against Donald Trump in Georgia, pushed back claims that her relationship with another colleague caused a financial conflict of interest.
You think I'm on trial. These people are on trial for trying to steal an election in 2020. I'm not on trial, no matter how hard you try to put me on trial.
Refuting the allegations passed by Trump's co-defendant, Willis repeatedly accused Trump's lawyers of quote-unquote lying in their statements to the court. The district attorney's stand comes after her fellow prosecutor and former partner Nathan Wade denied allegations of financial impropriety.
And now to remind you what the financial soup is all about, well, former U.S. President and Republican frontrunner Donald Trump, along with his lawyers, have urged for Willis' disqualification from the prosecution over her relationship with Wade. And the defendants claim that Nathan Wade paid for the trips that him and Willis took together while he was being paid by Willis's office. And the team also tapped into the duo's travel records to ascertain their claims. Listen in.
When the state was able to
it's highly offensive when someone lies on you, and it's highly offensive when they try to implicate that you slept with somebody the first day you met with them, and I take exception to it.
The Georgia case is one of 4 criminal prosecutions that Trump is facing during his run-up to the presidential polls in November 2024. Separately, the judge in the former president's hush money case, Yuan Merchant, has announced the date for the trial. The criminal case involving Stormy Daniels and model Karen McDougal will proceed to trial on the 25th of March. Our correspondent Susan Tehrani tells us more about the misconduct allegations against Fulton County prosecutor Fani Willis. Listen in.
Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, possibly in hot waters as she began testifying on Thursday at a hearing that could determine whether she's disqualified from leading Georgia's 2020 election interference case against former President Donald Trump. The hearing, playing out on televisions across the nation on cable network, centers around allegations of an improper relationship between Fani Willis and a prosecutor that she hired, Nathan Wade, for the racketeering case against former President Donald Trump and his co-defendants. And while Fani Willis has denied allegations and claims that her personal relationship with Nathan Wade resulted in a financial conflict of interest, some of Wade's comments and testimony on Thursday may have countered Willis's claims. A conflict of interest, or even an appearance of one, could be a cause for the removal of Fani Willis from Trump's case. Should a new prosecutor take over the case, then the case could either be dropped against the former president and his co-defendants or go to trial well after the 2024 U.S. presidential elections.
The White House publicly confirmed that Russia has obtained a troubling emerging anti-satellite weapon.
And U.S. officials are now analyzing this information they have on the emerging technology and have consulted with allies and partners on the matter.
Now, US House Speaker Mike Johnson said after a briefing by White House officials that it was a very serious matter and needed to be addressed immediately.
It's a serious matter. Some details have leaked. There's lots of conjecture, but what we're permitted to say in an unclassified setting is that it is a very serious matter. It does involve Russia. It's not a matter that can involve delay. It's something we have to address seriously and on an immediate basis, and we are.
Now, earlier, the White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that the weapon is concerning, but poses no immediate threat.
This is not an active capability that's been deployed. And though Russia's pursuit of this particular capability is troubling, there is no immediate threat to anyone's safety.
The White House confirmed its intelligence after a vague warning from the Republican head of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Turner. Turner had urged the Biden administration to declassify information about what he called a serious national security threat.
New information.
Kirby said that Biden has been informed about this development and that the president has directed a series of initial actions in response, including direct diplomatic engagement with Russia.
Kirby confirmed that the Russian weapon was space-based and did not comment on it being a nuclear weapon. He added that if at all it is, it would breach the 1967 Outer Space Treaty, which both Russia and the United States are parties to, and which bans the deployment of nuclear weapons in space.
Now, Moscow has denied what it calls malicious and unfounded claims, describing them as a White House ploy to try to pass a multi-billion-dollar Ukrainian war aid package that was stalled in Congress.
And in fresh developments from Russia, 6 people, including a child, have been killed in a Ukrainian missile strike in Russia's Belgorod.
Russian state media aired footage from the site of strike where 18 people were injured. And the Ukrainian strikes came hours after Russia fired 24 cruise and ballistic missiles in Ukraine, hitting multiple regions. Now, Belgorod's regional governor said that 5 of the 18 people injured in Ukrainian strike were children. And a news agency reported that 15 people were hospitalized.
Local authorities say a shopping center and a school stadium were hit in Belgorod. Russia's Ministry of Defense said air defense systems destroyed 14 missiles over the Belgorod region that were launched by Ukraine. Russia said Ukraine used an RM-70 Vampire multiple launch rocket system. Located 40 kilometers to the north of the Ukrainian border, Belgorod city has been a regular target of Ukrainian fire. We now shift focus to West Asia. Israel sent troops into a hospital in Gaza where it said hostages may have been held, as medics warned that the key medical facility was operating in near impossible conditions.
And the raid came after days of intense fighting between troops and Hamas militants around the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. It is one of the largest medical sites in southern Gaza and one of the territory's few hospitals that are still operational.
Israel said it was carrying out a precise and limited operation at the facility with no obligation for patients or staff to evacuate. Tel Aviv has repeatedly accused Hamas militants of using hospitals for military purposes. Israeli army said that there was credible intelligence indicating that Hamas held hostages at the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis and that there may be bodies of hostages there as well.
Gaza officials reported that thousands of people who had sought refuge in the complex, including patients, have been made to leave in recent days. And they call the situation at the hospital quite catastrophic, with staff unable to move bodies to the morgue because of the risks that are involved. And medical charity Doctors Without Borders described a chaotic situation in the hospital after it was shelled early Thursday, killing and wounding multiple people. Now, the World Health Organization has described Nasser Hospital as a critical facility for all of Gaza, where only a minority of hospitals are even partly operational.
Hundreds of thousands of people have been driven into Rafah seeking shelter in a sprawling makeshift encampment near the Egyptian border. Britain joined Australia, Canada and New Zealand Thursday in warning Israel not to launch a ground offensive in the city. In a call, Rishi Sunak told Netanyahu Britain was deeply concerned about the potentially devastating humanitarian impact of a military incursion into Rafah. The White House said that major Rafah operation would be disaster without credible plan.
In Cairo, efforts to secure a ceasefire entered a third day. Now, mediators from US, Qatar and Egypt are trying to broker a deal to halt the fighting and see the release of the remaining hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. CIA Director Bill Burns made an unannounced visit to Israel Thursday for talks with Netanyahu and the head of Israel's Mossad intelligence agency, David Barnea. Now, David Barnea had already held talks with Burns and Egyptian and Qatari representatives in Cairo on Tuesday before a Hamas delegation visited on Wednesday. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that he believed an agreement was still possible.
An agreement. We're now in the process with our counterparts from Qatar, from Egypt, from Israel, in working on that and working very intensely on that with the goal of trying to find an agreement, and I believe that that it is possible. Now, as I said, there are some very, very hard issues that have to be resolved, but we're committed to doing everything we can to move forward and to see if we can reach an agreement.
Families of the hostages protested outside the Defense Ministry in Tel Aviv to put pressure on the government to agree to a new prisoner exchange deal. In one of the biggest demonstrations yet, some protesters handcuffed themselves to one another and also to ministry railings.
An Israeli man seized in the October 7th Hamas attack was killed the same day and his body taken to Gaza. 59-year-old Yair Yaakov was believed to be alive and held by militants, but his kibbutz Niroz has now confirmed that he was murdered on October 7th and his body is being held in Gaza right now.
Yaakov was abducted along with his partner Meirav Tal and his two children Or and Yegel. Tal Or and Yegel were released in a prisoner exchange during a truce in November. Now, Netanyahu's office said it did not receive any new proposal from Hamas about releasing hostages. Israeli media reported that the country's delegation would not return to negotiations until Hamas softens its stance.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, who heads the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority, has urged Hamas to rapidly agree to a truce and stay away from further tragedy.
الآن قلنا لا لترامب ولغير ترامب لا لن نقبل مشروعه.
Israel-Lebanon border, it has become and it has been a hot zone of conflict ever since the October 7th attack of Hamas on Israel. After Israel's deadly attack on its northern neighbor, Hezbollah has now warned that Israel must pay the price.
However, Israel says that the price of war could be catastrophic for Hezbollah and for Lebanon amid fears of another war front that could open in West Asia. CIA Director William Burns made an unannounced visit to Israel.
Now, let's try to understand first what's happening on the ground. 10 people, including a Hezbollah commander and 2 other fighters, besides 7 Lebanese civilians, were killed in an Israeli airstrike in South Lebanon. This is the highest number of casualties reported in a single attack since October 7th. Scores of people were also injured in the strike that targeted a 3-story building. Israeli strikes were carried out using a drone that was fitted with guided missiles.
And against the warning of Iran-backed militant group, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says that the country has no interest in war, which must continue to prepare.
We have no interest in war, but we must prepare. The planes that are flying in Lebanon's sky as we speak have targets, and they know how to attack them, and they know how to change their attack from one place to the other. We can do copy-paste from Gaza to Beirut. We don't want to get there.
On Thursday, Hezbollah militants also claimed attacks on Israeli spy equipment and barracks, while the Israeli military said fighter jets struck dozens of Hezbollah targets in South Lebanon. Israeli strikes were in retaliation to an unclaimed rocket attack which killed a soldier in northern Israel.
Now, the United Nations has urged an immediate halt to what it calls as a dangerous escalation, even though both sides do not seek minor skirmishes happening on the border since October 7th has grown in intensity. Hezbollah says that the firing from Lebanon would when the war in Gaza will end. And the cross-border violence has claimed that at least 259 people on Lebanon's side, while 16 have died on the Israeli side.
Back-to-back storms that lashed the United States northeast region in January were not an aberration. Scientists believe that the storms were more of a sign of things to come than an anomaly.
And January's onslaught caused by the winter storm Finn was devastating for working waterfront communities in Maine. And dozens of docks, buildings and wharfs were damaged or destroyed. According to the state's Department of Marine Resources, the combination of storms in the second week of January coupled with high tides brought major damage in a state where industries like commercial fishing is quite vital.
On January 10th and 13th, two record-breaking coastal storms hit Maine back-to-back, and they led to some of the highest water levels we've ever measured along the coast since we started measuring in the early 1900s.
Another storm brought flooding to Massachusetts and New Hampshire on Tuesday as a powerful winter storm battered the region, blanketing New York for the first time in 2 years and causing flight cancellations and school closures as well.
And while preparing for a future of stronger storms, worse flooding and increased erosion will make for difficult choices in many coastal areas. Inland communities aren't immune to flooding from weather events like the January storms. And storms are becoming more the norm than an exception, giving cause for worry for people to be better prepared.
Leaders from NATO nations, Western countries and the global south, as well as defense ministers, spy chiefs and experts, they're all gathering in Germany to attend the 60th Munich Security Conference. But what is the MSC all about? The Munich Security Conference will run from today, that is Friday, until Sunday. But ahead of the conference, which is also known as Davos for Defense, global tensions, especially wars in Ukraine and the West Asia region, are set to dominate the agenda here. Speakers are also expected to discuss artificial intelligence and the questions its quick development raises. Environmental threat like climate change continues to dominate global concerns and the issues related to migration. All of that will be discussed at the Munich Security Conference. At the larger Munich Security Conference, attendees already have a glimpse at the main themes that will be under discussion. For the last decade, conference organizers have published a curtain-raising report to set the tone and agenda for the days to come. And this year, that report is titled Lose, Lose. Now, what that really means is that the report is based on the Munich Security Index. The report noted that countries are faced with difficult decisions amid growing geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainty. It also stresses that many governments are no longer focusing on the absolute benefits of global cooperation. They're not focusing on the benefits and rather things that they can gain, but they are increasingly concerned about what they are gaining less than others. Now, let me tell you about the big names that are arriving in Munich to attend the event. From the US side, Vice President Kamala Harris, of course, will be in attendance. Secretary of State of the US, Anthony Blinken, will also be in attendance at the MSC, will lead the delegation. China's top foreign policy chief, Wang Yi, will also be in attendance here. His visit to Germany comes as there were reports of the US which is likely to deploy nearly half of its aircraft carrier fleet in the Western Pacific, owing to tensions and military actions of China and North Korea in the region. Of course, that will be one meeting which will cause a stir. We will be tracking those developments. Other notable attendees include Indian Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Meanwhile, the hosts have not invited Russian and Iranian government officials to this year's conference. According to the man chairing the annual event, both the countries do not seem open to meaningful dialogue. There is a lot to be discussed at the Munich Security Conference, and we will be tracking it as it develops in the days to come. Back to you, Aditi.
Well, thanks, Shivan, for that update. And now let's shift focus to Spain. Well, farmers in Spain continue nationwide protest for the 10th day. And with a large rally outside the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food in the capital, Madrid, farmers are demanding the European Union's common agricultural policy. A dozen tractors were parked outside the Agriculture Ministry and unfurled banners on them read, "Farmers on a warpath," calling on the local and national governments to take measures to ensure fair income amid rising production costs. Now, around 250 farmers and agricultural union representatives gathered in the rain ahead of the meeting.
We are calling for justice, the justice that we've been demanding for many years. We don't need more aid. We don't need more donations. What we need is for the products that we have been cultivating all our lives to have the original value that they are worth.
Angry farmers have been protesting across Europe. They are demanding cut-offs over rising costs, high fuel prices, bureaucracy and the environmental requirements in the EU's common agricultural policy, along with its forthcoming Green Deal. So as the protests continue, the unions are planning a huge rally in front of the Agriculture Ministry again on the 21st of February and will rally again in Madrid on the 26th of February to coincide with the meeting of EU agriculture ministers in Brussels.
And often referred to as Europe's vegetable garden, Spain is one of the bloc's leading producers of salad, fruit and vegetables. But its farms have suffered from a long-running drought in the peninsula for the past 3 years. And since the beginning of February, Barcelona and 200 other towns have been in an official drought emergency, which means that more than 6 million people in the region are currently living with restrictions.
Now, the situation remains tense at India's Delhi borders as protesting farmers are continuing their march towards the capital.
And the protesting farmers have announced a nationwide strike on today, and it marks the 4th day of the Delhi Chalo March, which started on 13th of February.
Now, this comes after a third round of talks with the government in Chandigarh yielded no results. The next meeting has been scheduled for 18th February. As of now, the day-long strike today started at 6 a.m. and will go on till 4 p.m. in the evening. That is, of course, local time. Emergency services like ambulances, pharmacies and schools will, however, remain unaffected through the day.
And owing to the national strike, which is called by farmer unions, the Gautam Budh Nagar police said in the state of Uttar Pradesh, they have issued traffic restrictions under CRPC section 144. And here are some of the key points. Unauthorized public assemblies, political or religious, across the district have been prohibited, and the use of private drones in a radius of 1 kilometer of government establishments have been barred. And intensive checking will be done by installing barriers on all the borders of Noida and Delhi by the police on both sides.
BKU leader Pawan Khatana said that farmers have been asked to strike their work for 1 day in order to press the government for demands. Meanwhile, a section of traders here has urged the protesting farmers and the government to have a dialogue to quickly resolve the issue. The protest was started to put pressure on the government for farmers' demands, including a law on a minimum support price (MSP) on crops and loan waivers. All right, in our business section of World DNA, the year 2023 witnessed a major surge in global equity markets fueled by post-pandemic recovery efforts and near-zero interest rates.
Yes, and however, as we enter 2024, the landscape is shifting. Tightening monetary policies, geopolitical uncertainties and evolving investor priorities are creating a more complex and volatile environment.
Now, there are key factors to look at while assessing the market environment. First is the interest rate shift. The era of near-zero interest rates is coming to an end, with major central banks like the US Fed raising rates to combat inflation. Second, geopolitical tensions. Ongoing conflicts and political instability in regions like Ukraine and West Asia pose significant risks to global economic growth and investment stability. Then we focus on shifting investor priorities. ESG, which is, of course, environmental, social and governance considerations, are gaining traction. And lastly, focus beyond tech and on undervalued industries with high potential.
And this brings us to the sectors that offer exciting prospects in 2024. Well, technology and AI are the front runners in this race without a surprise, with Nvidia and ARM shares skyrocketing in 2024.
Healthcare holds promise due to aging populations, technological advancements and rising demand for specialized treatments. Investments in bioprocessing, medical devices and new treatments could be particularly fruitful here.
And energy is another sector in the spotlight. Investors can explore companies involved in both traditional and renewable energy solutions as well.
Lastly, infrastructure. Global infrastructure upgrades offer long-term investment opportunities, particularly in areas like transportation, utilities and digital infrastructure as well.
And by identifying attractive regions, exploring undervalued sectors beyond tech and considering sustainable practices, investors can capitalize on emerging opportunities in a volatile market.
Pakistan's political landscape has shifted with Shehbaz Sharif and his coalition government, which is all set to take charge now.
But the celebrations may be short-lived as daunting economic challenges loom large. And Pakistan's economy faces a complex web of issues, from a gaping budget deficit to unsustainable debt, and the IMF program demands tough reforms, including privatization, state enterprise restructuring and energy rationalization. Now, financial expert Shahid Habib sheds a light on the immediate hurdles. Listen into what he has to say.
I think they must have to deal with IMF, because this is the major thing for the upcoming government, because our current IMF program is the standby agreement program is maturing in March, April, and they have to come up with a new program, which will be the larger program, around 2 to 3 years, I think 3 years program, where they have to take $6 to $8 billion of funding, and they have to execute various structural reforms in that program.
The coalition government's diverse ideologies add another layer of complexity here. Well, building consensus within this diverse group will be crucial for decisive action, and despite the challenges, there is a glimmer of hope. Habib says that if they manage the IMF program effectively, it can set the right direction for the economy.
I think IMF will enforce the government to go for privatization program, and this is good for the country as well. They also have to curtail losses in the state-owned enterprises. They also have to have a plan for the energy rationalization, debt sustainability. This is the major issue. So they have to manage friendly countries. They have to manage multilateral. They have to get multilateral financing as well. So IMF program is a bigger thing for the government, and that will set the direction for the economy as well.
Pakistan's new leaders have a Herculean task ahead. The future of Pakistan's economy hangs in the balance, of course. All right, now let's take a look at all the developments coming in from the world of technology. Tech giant Meta has said that they have removed thousands of fake Facebook accounts. These fake account holders posed as US military families and anti-war activists. According to Meta, these fake accounts were part of a China-based covert operation to influence US-based social media users. Around 33 Facebook accounts, 4 Instagram profiles, 6 Facebook pages and groups were removed by Meta.
And these accounts regularly posted about US aircraft carriers and other military themes, as well as criticism of US foreign policy towards Taiwan and Israel and its support of Ukraine. Now, the group also shared an online petition that claimed to have been written by Americans to criticize America's support for Taiwan. And according to the initial investigation, the fake accounts originated in China. The exact location is yet to be identified.
Next up, Microsoft is all set to invest $3.4 billion in Germany in the next 2 years. Microsoft aims to double the capacity of its AI and data center infrastructure in the country and expand its training programs.
We're announcing today that Microsoft is investing 3.2 billion euros in 2 years, 2024 and 2025. And we're investing this money to do 2 things. The first is to double the capacity of our AI and data center infrastructure in the country. And the second is to invest in an accelerated and massive expansion of our AI skilling programs here in Germany.
Now, the largest single investment in Microsoft's 40-year history in Germany, the offering also includes an AI training program that aims to reach 1.2 million people. And meanwhile, Microsoft is not the only tech giant to expand their AI work in Europe. Google is also opening a research hub in Paris, and Google aims to train at least 100,000 AI professionals by the end of 2025.
According to a survey by Kaspersky, a cybersecurity company, over half of online daters in India have faced some form of online violence or abuse. As part of the research, the company interviewed 1,000 people across 21 countries. During the investigation, it was found that around 54% respondents had faced online abuse from their current or ex-partners. The report also showed that 21% of women in India have had their accounts hacked by previous partners. Additionally, 27% received unwanted emails or messages and 23% were filmed or photographed without consent. According to the report, India is number 1 in online stalking in the Asia-Pacific region, followed by Malaysia.
Now, Indian websites and apps faced over 5.14 billion cyber attacks in 2023. And according to a report, these attacks were heavily focused on the healthcare sector, software as a service. Companies were hit hard, as well as they saw a tenfold increase in attacks due to the valuable customer data they hold. Now, the report also highlighted ways to tackle such threats, such as using AI models to detect anomalies and swiftly respond to threats. Now, the report identified major origins of cyber attacks that included the US, UK, Russia, Germany and Singapore, in addition to India.